Although that's a different body part. That's not the point. The point is relevant. No, we've got Twitch is active. Very good. The Strain streaming to LinkedIn, which is always a weird thing. Facebook filling up, though, everybody. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to Maine. Hello. Happy Friday to all of you. The only reason I know what day of the week it is because of this show. This marks the end of my work week, although I will be working Friday and Saturday. Still the end of my work week. I'm having a scotch today. If any of you are having a beverage, throw me a little drink icon in the chat. Let me know what's going on. It can be a non-alcoholic beverage. We're not judgmental. We don't care. And let's see. As always on Monster of the Week, we pimp books and stuff because this is a book-oriented show. And with me coming up in a minute is one of the most book-oriented people I know. Her name is Mallory O'Meara. She's the author of The Lady from the Black Lagoon and another book called Girly Drinks, which is just out. We're going to discuss that. And the book I am going to pimp today, because I ran out of time to pimp the book that just came out in paperback today, which is Mount Fitzroy. So we're going to talk about my creature feature novel, which is Ancestor. If you are here to see Mallory and you like the creature from Black Lagoon, Ancestor is the one for you to pick up of mine. You will enjoy it, but we're really focusing on the creature from the Black Lagoon today. Coming up, my upcoming guests are going to be, I forgot to update. Sorry about that. Next week, on December 10th, we have one of my favorite podcasters of all time, scientist Dr. Kiki Sanford. She's going to be talking about a monster that blew me away, Brundlefly, fantastic. And then we'll finish up season 1 of Monster of the Week on December 17th with our extra special heartfelt Christmas episode, author J.D. Netto talking about Krampus. And now let me read off the intro and we will dive into this. Mallory O'Meara is the award-winning and best-selling historian and writer of The Lady from the Black Lagoon and the new book, Girly Drinks. Every week, she co-hosts the literary podcast, Reading Glasses. If you like my podcast, which is stories, Reading Glasses talks about stories and storytellers. You will dig it. She lives in the mountains near Los Angeles with her 2 cats, where she's working on her next nonfiction book. Bourbon is the drink of her choice. Mallory, welcome to Monster of the Week.
Hello. And I will say, I am not drinking bourbon tonight. I am drinking scotch with you. So cheers.
Cheers.
I know you love scotch, so I had to join you.
I do love scotch. It is something I never had in my early days, never ruined myself on in my early days. And now it is just an absolute delight. We're going to dive into the creature in a moment. But first, I already mentioned the book, The Lady from the Black Lagoon, which we'll be discussing. But you have a brand new book out called, there it is right there. Hold on. You talk about girly drinks while I fix this problem so people can see the cover.
It's all good. I mean, we all know how live streams go. So Girly Drinks is a nonfiction book. It is the history of women making, drinking, and serving alcohol from the beginning of time until now. So if you are a cocktail, beer, wine, any kind of booze nerd or history nerd, feminist nerd, any kind of history nerd, really, this could be for you. Yes, there's pictures. There's pictures.
There's pictures in it. And this is what my wife A is reading this book right now, and she worked her way through college as a bartender, is still the bartender of the house, and is a feminist. So like this book kind of fell out of the heavens for her. I'm hoping there'll be some interesting drinks in this book that I can have. And A just said in the chat room she is totally loving this book. But now we got to talk about monsters. The Creature from the Black Lagoon came out in 1954. I learned today it premiered in Detroit, Michigan, which I love as a born and bred Michigander. The story involves a group of scientists who discover a Piscine amphibious humanoid in the waters of the Amazon. While by and large, the populace knows this as the creature, Mallory, is it more accurate to say this monster is the Gill Man?
He's called both, and he sort of got the Gillman nickname pretty early on, so it's kind of interchangeable.
And which do you refer to it? Do you refer to it as the creature, or do you more think of it as the Gillman or something else?
I call him my husband.
Which is great because this kind of launched your writing career, right? The fixation on the Gillman, on Monster of the Week, on Creature of the Black Lagoon, and the woman who created the creature's special effects. This is what started you out on your rocketing literary career.
Yeah, I did not mean to be a writer. I am not that masochistic. I just sort of fell into it. I was a filmmaker, and Millicent, who is the woman who designed the creature, she's my hero, and I really wanted to find out what happened to her. And I ended in doing so, I ended up writing this book, Lady from the Black Lagoon, which was her story, because at the time, no one even knew if she was still alive. No one knew what happened to her. No one knew her story. And I wanted to know personally. So this book ended up happening, and I realized, oh my God, I love this writing thing. And I have continued to do it. And now I'm a writer and a historian.
Tell me why Millicent Patrick is your hero.
Well, when I was growing up as a baby horror nerd, all of my heroes were guys: Jack Pierce, Tom Savini, Dick Smith, Rick Baker, all those guys. And I loved monsters. I loved horror. I have forever. And but I didn't see girls doing it. I didn't see women directing. I didn't see women making monsters. And it wasn't until the first time I saw Creature from the Black Lagoon, I was a teenager, and I didn't have anybody in my family to sort of show me the ropes of horror. You know, I didn't have like an older brother, an older sister to like show me horror movies. I was just kind of on my own. And I thought, okay, well, Universal monsters are the classics. I have to start with those. So I was working my way through them, and I finally got to Creature, watched Creature from the Black Lagoon, absolutely loved it, of course, and did what all nerds do. Is the first thing I did was go online to look about it. You know, I wanted to look all the behind the scenes photos. I wanted to know trivia. I wanted to know about this thing that I fell in love with. And while I was looking, I saw this photo of a woman working on the creature suit, and I was like, hold the phone, please. What's a lady doing in there? And it was like being struck by lightning. It was this woman, Millicent Patrick, working on the creature suit, and I had never seen a girl doing that before, and it just completely blasted my brain open and made me realize that girls can do this. And it directly led to me becoming a filmmaker later on. And she just always was my hero, my guiding light. And and I still love the Creature from the Black Lagoon to this day. So she is still, even after I wrote the book, all this stuff happened, she's still my hero.
We have one question in the chat room. Shannon asks, wants to see the tattoo you talk about in her book, the tattoo you got of Millicent Patrick. Is that something we can show on this show?
It is something we could show. So the only reason why there's not a photo of the tattoo in the book is because it's it's very hard to take a good worthy photo of a tattoo, because, you know, Scott, as you know, tattoos are not flat. They're on your body. So it's hard to get a good photo of them. So this is it. This is Millicent. Being hugged by the creature. It is not the illustration from the cover, but it is the same artist.
Oh my gosh. So that's great. So you were able to get the artist for your book cover to do a tattoo design. Yeah. That's amazing. I had always planned to, like, way back in my baby writer days, I'm like, as soon as I get a book that hits the New York Times list, I'm going to get a tattoo of the logo of that book. And then I sort of lost track of it. So I haven't quite done that yet. Also, I found out I don't like needles very much. So my one tattoo, I wimped out. My one tattoo is like, that's plenty, because that is not something I'm interested in. Let's talk about the movie for just a little bit.
Yes.
Creature from Black Lagoon came out in 1954. As I told you, the budget was under $500,000. In today's dollars, that's $5.1 million in today's dollars. That's not a lot for a creature feature. The screenplay I'm shopping right now is estimated for a budget of $7 million, and that is shot in a derelict mall, has almost no special effects. So that's a real low budget film. The box office is $1.3 million, which is $13.3 million in today's money, but by non-streaming standards, making a little over twice your original budget is sort of considered a flop. Mallory, if this movie was so slow out of the gates, how has it become so iconic?
Well, it came out at a really, really interesting time for Universal, because up until very, very recently in the early 1950s, Universal had tried to distance itself from its monster movie past. During the 40s, it wanted to be a serious film studio and got rid of Jack Pierce, who was the special effects artist who had created all these Universal monsters. And, you know, they wanted to make dramas, and they wanted to make serious movies. And it wasn't until the early 1950s when sci-fi came about, and sci-fi was a brand new genre. It was a huge deal, that all of a sudden Universal realized, hey, we can make money off of this. We should get into the sci-fi game. And then they realized, oh God, we are the studio with this incredible horror history. We should get back into it. But they still were kind of new to the game. You know, they were just getting back into it at the time. So they were kind of getting their feet under them, and they were trying to trot everything out. They're like, hey, we did Wolfman, we did Dracula, we did Frankenstein. Now this is this new installation in the classic horror canon, which, you know, now we think of the classic horror canon. Back then it was just present day. but they, it took a little while to get there. People were very freaked out by it. People were still learning sci-fi. It was just everything was changing over to color from black and white. This is one of the very last like hurrah of black and white movies at Universal.
Okay.
There was a new audience with teenagers. People were trying to figure out how to market to teens. So it was kind of an experimental thing. It was a whole new game. So they weren't quite sure what to do with it yet.
And here, this is what I want to ask you. Now, of course, most of the time when a guest comes on this show, they pick some iconic monster that thrills them or scared them and they had some visceral reaction to. Your story is a little bit different, seeing as you literally wrote the book on the special effects master who made the monster. But for the movie itself, what makes the creature scary to you? When you watch the movie, what is terrifying about this monster?
The thing that's really freaky about Creature is how realistic he is. This was, again, because he was sci-fi, this was not part of like the supernatural, like old world ghosts and stuff kind of horror. Creature feels like he could be real. He, even today in the 1950s, he really felt real because, people, right. There's no internet to look this stuff up at. But even today, while you're watching it, Millicent Patrick did such an incredible job at her research. I mean, the design for Creature was based off of fossils of real amphibious creatures, real fish. So he has that sort of ring of truth, and he almost looks like he could be, living in the pond near your house. Yeah. And that is terrifying.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to this. How much do you think of this as Jaws-esque? As in, there's one area on the earth that humans have not completely dominated yet, and that is below the surface of the water, where we are largely helpless against predators. You've got Jaws, you've got piranha, you got all these things. How much of a fear of that place that we will die if we just even pass out for a moment, how much of that factored into the success and the enduring legend of the creature?
Oh, a ton. I mean, some of the biggest and most exciting moments in this one, it was shot in 3D. So getting to see those underwater things in 3D is just so absolutely cool. Mm-hmm. But all the underwater shots and the use of underwater cameras and the divers and the breath suits that they had to use, it creates this film that is almost like you said. I mean, it's another world. It feels otherworldly, and everything under the water, the way that they shot it is so beautiful. Like, it's such a beautiful horror movie, even though it is a monster movie and we don't associate a lot of monster movies with beauty, but it's just a gorgeous, it still holds up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's still so beautiful. And, like synchronized swimming in big movies with a lot of people swimming together were much more like, you don't see that at all now. So people were familiar with like, oh, it's a movie of people swimming, super cool. But this was a monster. As far as Millicent Patrick's work, and the underwater scenes still hold up to this day. They're gorgeous. How much of her work in making the suit had to accommodate the fact that this is going to be submerged for a lot of these shots?
Well, I mean, one, she had to create something that looked like it belonged in water, which is where all of her research into the first design of the costume was ridiculous. It was made by the prop people and not the special effects people. It was just like a spandex onesie with a weird mask. She wanted to create a whole suit. And if you notice, amongst all of the Universal canon, he's really the only monster that's a full design from head to toe. Okay. So she couldn't just think about it as a mask and hands that would, like a little jacket that would go over it. She had to think about it as something that would be submerged with scales. So she had to really conceive of it as an entire monster. And I mean, I'm obviously very biased, but I think she did a great job.
Got a couple of questions from the chat room. These are good. Chris Andrews says, I forget, was this one or Return of the Creature that has one of Clint Eastwood's first acting roles?
It's Return. It's not this
Return, one of his first acting roles. That's amazing.
I think he's an uncredited lab assistant.
Oh, geez.
And it's pretty funny.
Yeah, careers can start out in very, very strange places. David Lamb asks if you are also a fan of Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water.
So I went to go see Shape of Water opening night with my best friend. And after the movie, she had to take me to the bathroom to clean my face off because I was crying so hard from joy that my mascara was all the way down my face. I am completely obsessed with Shape of Water.
That's the answer. Got the picture on screen right now, you guys. Mallory can't see, sadly, but you can. That is Millicent Patrick doing her work on the creature mask. Now, you, Mallory, you being a science-based person, the creature feels like that whole movie, like this is a bunch of scientists finding a thing. It's grounded in plausible yet batshit science, which is basically my whole career as a monster writer is this is plausible. This is also batshit crazy. Do you think that had an impact on both the initial reception of the movie? Because like there wasn't as much science education then. Nobody had seen anything like this. Do you think there was that reaction almost like War of the Worlds where people like, oh, sure, that's probably a real thing. That could really happen.
Absolutely. I mean, remember during the 1950s, like the thought that there was a man-fish creature in the Amazon, a place where most Americans had never and would never go to, just seemed totally plausible. Mm-hmm. That was the magic of the creature, is that it just seemed like it could be real.
And has that helped endure at all, do you think? Or is it just because what I'm trying to figure out is you've got the Wolfman, you've got Dracula, you've got Frankenstein, and you've got the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those are the big four. Those are the big four that launched America's fascination with iconic monsters that get remade over and over and over again. You've got cool new stuff for sure, but if you look at the iconic monsters of the world, it's those four. Is the creature sort of part of all of that just all coming together, or is the creature kind of its own thing that just horned in on the existing trio?
I actually think the creature belongs in that pantheon. I mean, again, everyone has their own horror pantheon. You can fight me after the show, but I think creature belongs in there. And I think what makes the creature fit into all of those and why all those monsters are so enduring is empathy. Because when you watch those movies, especially ones like Creature and Wolfman, Frankenstein, you are feeling for them, you identify with them. And that was, I think, a huge turning point for horror. When I was watching Creature when I was a teenager for the first time and watching him like swim underneath Julie Adams and like, he's like looking at this hot person that he can't get because he doesn't know how to talk to her. Like I didn't feel like Julie Adams. I felt like Creature. I felt like that when I was walking in the halls of high school. So I think that's why they became so classic and why they fit so well together, even though there's a gap of about 20 years between them, depending on the movie, with 15 to 20 years. Mm-hmm. They all have that empathy. It's not just like a straight black and white, this is bad, we need to kill it. You see their motivations, you see where they're living, you almost root for them by the end.
Here's a question from the chat room. Now we're getting into some nerdy shit right here. Who would win?
This is my jam.
From Lonely Bob. Who would win in an underwater battle? Creature from the Black Lagoon or Aquaman?
I think Creech, depending on where you are. Creech is so good at like blending into the shadows, and he's really good at sneaking up on people. I think you could take Aquaman.
Another great question. This is some deep cuts from fandom here. Shannon Chevry asks, which trailer did Mallory do for you, Scott? Mallory, which book trailer did you shoot for A&I?
Live! Oh my God. I was actually thinking about that the other day. We had a ton of fun during that shoot.
It was a great time. I probably should have, I mentioned to myself I should have that queued up for this, and I totally blew the pooch on that one. So
it was really, really fun.
Bad. Those are both bad things, but it was an awesome, great time. So here's a question. Now you know a lot about movies. You've written books about movies. You've made movies. You've produced. You've done all this crazy stuff. What the F is going on? Why haven't we seen a Creature of the Black Lagoon remake with modern day special effects powers?
So it's funny you say that. Creature from the Black Lagoon has been in development hell for decades. There have been tons of different scripts. There have been when I started writing Lady from the Black Lagoon, this is when the Dark Universe stuff was starting. Yep. And Scarlett Johansson was attached to the project. Ooh. And that stopped. Yeah. And now I believe it's like Greg Nicotero is attached to the project. It's never gone through. It's never happened. I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. Mm-hmm. It's just such an iconic movie. It's truly never been remade. The closest we get is obviously Shape of Water, which I don't think of as a remake. I think of as the next chapter, is if that another scientific expedition could come down, get Creech, bring him back to America, that Shape of Water would happen. But yeah, there's always, every few years we get rumblings of someone else getting attached or someone else writing a script, but it's just never happened.
Well, honestly, I hope that someday, if it keeps never happening, that's something you can be involved in. I know there's lots of cool things going on with your writing. Going back to Millicent Patrick, can you tell the viewers was she just welcomed into this process, or was there a battle for her to do this, or was she just the right person at the right time to be able to design the creature?
She actually was welcomed into it at first. So, as I said before, this was a time when Universal was like just getting back into making monster movies after trying to become a serious film production studio for a really long time. And while after they fired Jack Pierce, who is the, iconic creator of Frankenstein and Wolfman, they had hired a man named Bud Westmore, and he and his family were known for beauty makeup. They did not do a lot of monster or special effects makeup, but they were very iconic in the world of beauty makeup.
Okay.
So when Universal changed its tone and wanted to start doing sci-fi movies and monster movies, Bud was like, oh crap, what do I do? So he started hiring other people to design things. And one day he met Millicent Patrick in the makeup trailer because she was a background actress on the Universal lot. She was in a bunch of films in the background, but she was such a talented artist. She was one of the first female animators at Disney. That something that she did to keep herself occupied on set was draw portraits of her co-stars. And while Bud was doing her makeup, he saw these illustrations and he was like, oh my God, lady, you're incredible. So he hired her, and she started doing beauty makeup, but they got this new sci-fi, Universal's first sci-fi movie, which it came from outer space. And he was like, I need an alien. Can you design one? And she did it. And it was a very iconic, it totally worked. The film was a success.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, you should keep doing this. So when Creature fell into their laps, she was the natural choice. She didn't apply makeup to people, she designed it. So she was totally welcomed into it, especially after the prop department failed to create Creature. So she needed to do it very quickly. She made this incredible design, and it totally worked. And it wasn't until after the film was about to come out and it was very clear that the film was going to be a huge success that Bud got jealous of all the attention that she was getting. And that's when all the trouble started. But at first, when he was only, because he still is the person who got the on-screen credit for it. Millicent Patrick is not credited in the film.
Okay.
When no one knew that it was a woman, when he knew that no one was going to know that it was a woman designing things, he was like, yeah, come on in. But as soon as she started getting attention for it, that's when he was like, oh, no, we can't have this.
That in this book, which covers up on the screen right now, Ladies from Black Lagoon, goes into that, and it's great to see her get some justice and recognition in the end. Was this book kind of the first, hey, wait a minute, this very talented person did a thing that has endured in world culture and American culture for 70 years? Was it this book, or did she get blips of recognition? Did her career continue after the movie?
It just me. This book is really not to toot my own horn, or I guess to toot Millicent's horn, because her horn deserves to be tooted. This is the book that I believe really brought people's attention, because I still get people who are like, I don't know if she designed it. I'm like, I wrote an entire book about this. But yeah, up until she's still not credited anywhere. Once in a while, like at Universal Studios, you'll find a picture of her, but this book was really the first thing to kind of stake her claim.
And we get a lot of people who look and sound like me are like, well, this isn't really a problem. This isn't really a problem at all. But you look at, here we are as a perfect example, like an absolutely one of the big four of all of horrordom of all time. When you see the Creature from the Black Lagoon face in silhouette, in icon, black and white, color, it doesn't matter. You know exactly what that is. You are fully filled in. That is an absolute icon, equal to Frankenstein. And yet, until this book, we've got people who don't know the brilliant human who designed this thing that has endured for so long. How do you feel as a creator and as a documentarian? I'm not sure what the right word is. Like, oh, this person did this thing, I want to bring this to light. How do you feel bringing this to light for people who get to discover this for the first time?
I mean, honestly, it's the greatest honor of my life. She's my hero, and it felt like I owed her this. She helped me get into film and feel like I belonged in this world. So it was the least I could do, to give her the recognition that she deserved. It was a lot of pressure while I was working on the book, but I'm so happy. And it's like, honestly, one of the favorite things that I've ever done.
Is that self-induced pressure or pressure from outside forces? Describe that.
It was self-induced pressure because, she meant so much to me. So I wanted to do her justice. But at the same time, I was also, throughout the entire process of the book, I had male historians and film writers saying, oh, she didn't do anything,
Wow.
I don't believe this. You know, she was just somebody's girlfriend. That's the only reason why she was on set. So I felt a duty to prove them all wrong. And because I know people have said things about me, that stuff like that about me before, and women that I work with in the film industry. So I really felt like I was carrying a banner into battle here. And I'm just so honored that I got to be the one to do it.
And it's wonderful. You got to do this book, launch your writing career, which is going extremely well. NPR, all kinds of interviews, all kinds of great things. But let's talk about the brass tacks of monsterdom. What about the creature itself? Like what is your favorite feature? Now, most feature, not movie feature of the monster. Most monsters are face makeup, costume, etc. The creature from Black Lagoon is one of the rare ones. It's top to bottom. Is it the claws? Is it the face? Is it the gills? Is there any particular thing where you're like, it's all brilliant, but that part is genius?
Oh, it's his hands, his little creechy hands, his big creechy hands, I guess. I love them so much. The design is so cool. It's just so unique and so iconic. And it's more difficult than you think to create a human fish hybrid. A friend of mine and someone I interviewed for the book at the very end, Mike Hill, who is the designer of the Shape of Water creature, as they call it, the asset. He told me, he's like, Mallory, you don't understand how difficult it is to design something like that without making it silly looking. And Millicent managed to make something that looked realistic, but also just extremely badass and cool. And I just love, there's some, especially when you watch the 3D version of the movie and those claws are coming at you. It's just so cool.
In the chat room, Laura Hernandez says, Mallory, thank you for this wonderful piece of art. How delightful. How nice. And now I'm going to ask the very difficult question. The offensive question in the world of horror. When the remake happens, I cross my arms and I ask this question. When the remake happens, because eventually, there's money to be made. Practical effects or CGI, which dominates the creature from the Black Lagoon?
What I hope is that it will be a Guillermo del Toro sort of thing, where it'll be a marriage between the two. It will be a totally practical suit with some CGI, shiny, sparkly things added to it. But especially when it comes to someone acting alongside the creature and someone acting inside the creature, I think it's got to be practical. It's got to be a practical suit.
I just watched a creature called Slither for another podcast that I was on. And the ability to meld the CGI and the practical effects, but still leave the moneymaker alone. Like you still have because human eyes, the window to the soul, the gateway to the expression. So hopefully it'll be like that. Do you think if it was remade that they will be true to the original script, or is the script itself outdated for Creature Feature at this point?
I actually don't think the script is that outdated, especially since there's so many environmental undertones there, and it's such a hot button issue for all of us right now with climate change. I can definitely see a world where it's the same sort of setup with a scientific expedition, sort of like Skull Island, scientific expedition going to a place that climate change has either revealed or changed in some fundamental way, and we find a creature. I mean, it's just such a classic Creature Feature setup. Human beings going into the unknown and finding something that wants to eat them, that I don't see them changing it that much. I do hope that they change the characters a little bit, because obviously it's sort of a sausage fest, even though Julie Adams is amazing. I'd love to see them add more varied crew of the Rita, more varied science crew. I'd love to see a little bit more of that. But Scott, let me know what you think, but I think the story still holds up pretty well.
I think it still holds up pretty well. I do think that one of my favorite films we've had, Phil Plait talked about this film on Monster of the Week, that has a really solid scientific female character that's an integral part of the plot because of her science, is Them, which came out, was very much a contemporary of the Creature of the Black Lagoon, not in a sausage fest with a significant exception, which at the time was a lights out exception. Like, this woman is here because she is a scientist and she is integral to us figuring out what's going on with a monster. That kind of thing could be better, but not just the straight femme fatale in this, the woman in Kong's hand per se. But I almost think we're past that. When this movie is made, we'll see a much more diverse cast for it, especially if it's still in the Amazon.
Hopefully. I mean, you can draw a straight line from the female scientists in 1950s sci-fi horror movies like them, Creature from the Black Lagoon, straight to Dana Scully, straight to the Laura Dern's character in Jurassic Park, Ellen, God, I can't remember her last name in the movie. But you can, I mean, those characters were really, really important. And I'm hoping to see the fruits of that labor in a future monster movie, maybe Creature.
Plus, awesome. Everybody loves a creature feature. Great creature features. So, Mallory O'Meara, she is the author of Girly Drinks, which you can buy right now. It's brand new. It's out. And of course, she's the author of The Lady from the Black Lagoon, which you can read the story of Millicent Patrick, and someone who I am very envious of, because my goal since I have been 6 years old is to create a monster to join the pantheon of monsterdom. Millicent Patrick was able to do that with the Lady of the Black Lagoon. Mallory, where should people go find more about you?
You can go to MalloryO'Meara.com. That's where all my stuff is. I'm way too active on Twitter at Mallory O'Meara. Same thing with Instagram. It's just at Mallory O'Meara, all over the place.
Thank you for being on. I was just telling Mallory before the show that A and I miss you a whole bunch. We hang out at all the cons, but there's been no cons. And it sucks because you're awesome and we miss you, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, I would really love to have some scotch in person at some point soon, or when things get a little safer.
All right. Goodbye. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
And then I end the meeting because my Zoom skills are so poor. I don't even know how to put someone in the green room. But that is it for this week. Again, let's go over the upcoming guests, which I flubbed on. Obviously, you just watched author Mallory O'Meara talking about The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Next week, podcaster extraordinaire, influential Dr. Kiki Sanford talking about Barundlefly, one of the best monsters of all time. Special effects, practical effects, combined with an amazing performance by Jeff Goldblum. Wonderful. Join us for that. It's going to be great. You guys will love Dr. Kiki Sanford. She's amazing. And then on December 17th, a erstwhile budding young go back to Maine. Sorry, guys. An erstwhile budding young, hardworking blue-collar author, J.D. Netto, is going to be here talking about Krampus. And if you guys are fans of mine and all the work that A and I put into building all of the things that we do in entertaining you, I believe that you will be very entertained by Mr. J.D. Netto. He reminds me a lot of A and I back in the day, putting things together. Until then, I hope you all have... I forgot my tagline. Tagline's a disaster on this show. I hope you are stay monstery. That's the best thing I got for you all. I'm now going to sign off. Have a great weekend. I'm going to have another scotch. My wife's taking me out for dinner. And you know what? Oddly, ironically, we're having a seafood dinner. Could be a little creature from Black Lagoon in there. You don't know. Thank you all. You're